Well, hello there, it's Ina here and welcome to my art room. Today I will be working with this rather sturdy lid of an old wooden box, and even though it is a little bit banged up, it has just the right size and shape for the project I am planning to do. So I start by just outlining a diamond shape. I actually measure a little bit to get it somewhat straight, and I use my white Stabilo so I can see it on that dark background. And that just gives me a little guideline of how I want to work on this piece. This is of course meant for the August 4-core challenge, and so a little bit later in the video you will see the lineup of all the wonderful entries you sent my way, and then towards the end of the video I of course will give you the challenge for the month of September. And here you see me adding some texture to the background. I use my Mod Podge and some simple cheesecloths. And the cloth goes all the way up the sides, and a couple of places it goes across the edge. And then of course this needs to dry really well before I can add anything else on top of it. But during the drying process I went ahead and added some texture paste to the edges here, because that also will need time to dry, and I purposely use my fingers so it creates some extra highs and lows and texture on the rim as well. And while I'm at it, a little bit of texture paste to the inside, and I picked a stencil that also has a diamond shape. Now it is always a little bit tricky to work within a confined space when you use stencils, but it worked out okay. I did take off a little bit of the design because I figured it might be better to just have it within the diamond, and then after I gave it just a few minutes to dry, I added a few more designs here and there. That time I was a little more careful, so I didn't have to erase anything. And then of course I really had to give this some time to dry, and then I went ahead and redefined the diamond by adding some ball chain using my E6000. I cut it to size, and it just gives me a nice boundary. Like with most of my art pieces, I will do a lot of gluing, and some of that I will fast forward, but I will always give you close-up shots, so in between, so you can see where I'm at. This is another ball chain, this time a plastic one, and it goes around the outer edge. And yes, I will incorporate this little cello. You have seen it in my introductory video. Usually I like to use things that you haven't seen yet, but this seemed just a perfect little instrument to incorporate into this project. So I start by adding some of this lace here, lace ribbon, which is really handy. I've used it on many of my other projects. I got it on Amazon. It's really cheap, and it has such nice texture. Now to glue it down in this funny shape wasn't easy, and I found it's best to use plenty of glue, then let it dry until it's tacky, and then you can kind of press it into the form you want it to go. Here I also add some simple string to the stick on the bottom just to give it some texture as well. You most likely noticed the little price tag on the bottom, and yes, I found this again at a thrift store for just a couple of dollars, and I knew that I could incorporate it somewhere before we even thought about the musical instrument challenge for this month. Anyway, here I am adding some more texture. This time I cut apart some lace. It has a swirly design and some flowers, and it gives me a nice starting point. I do not want to cover the instrument completely. I just want to add some important elements right here on the top. Now from here on, all my steps will be very easy for you to follow. Like always, I will put anything you need to know in the captions. Now I will use, for the most part, broken jewelry pieces. I will use some of my charms, some of my beads, and so on. Here you can see some little notes I had and music keys. I also have some tiny flowers. Some of these are earrings which I will cut apart, which also have a flower design. So I start with rather tiny pieces right here on top of the cello, and then I will move on to the box with some of the bigger pieces. So like I said earlier, some of that will go pretty fast, some I will skip some steps, but I think you'll get a pretty good idea of what I am doing. So please enjoy some music, and I will talk to you in just a wee bit. So I am coming to the end of all the different steps I took to color these pieces, and like always it takes me a little while. Of course the bright orange gave the tone, and I felt that the green was a nice complementary colors. I purposely used different shades, and I believe the in-between layer of white gesso elevates everything. It just brings out the color in more brightness. So I fiddle around a little bit with my different waxes, especially here on the cello. I add some of the white one to bring it out a bit more, make it a little lighter, especially on the edges. And I also add a little bit of gold robin buff to the big diamond to bring out the stenciled diamond. And it's very subtle, but I think that's all it needs. And I also use some more of the pigment powder paint to add some color to these little flowers and give them a little shine. Then all this needs to dry, and then I'm ready to glue the cello into its frame. For that I use my E6000. I have 3 contact points, and by weighing it down it dried nice and strong and sturdy. Now for the very last step, I added these little orange dewdrop gems. I used my E6000 and just placed them so in between the little flowers. And that's really it. My project is completed, and of course I want to give you one more close-up. It has great texture all around the frame, and of course the orange diamond in the middle brings out the focal point of the cello really nicely. And I'm quite fond of the more delicate decorations I added to it. It stands in nice contrast to the more rustic and bigger pieces of the background. You can see the little label down here. And here on the cello you can see one more time the music notes and the flowers, which were part of the challenge. I of course also cleaned up the back of this lid. I added some sheet music, a hanger. I distressed the paper a little bit, added a quote, and of course my signature. And the quote says, "Music is a piece of art." And that is the title of this project. I really hope you had fun watching me put this together. I'm pleased with the way it came out, and I'm very pleased with all the photos you sent my way for the lineup. That will come up right now, so please take your time admiring everyone's creation. Slow down your video so you do not miss any details. I will be back with the next challenge right after. So that was the lineup of last month's entries, and as you could see, we had a really nice variety of projects, so many different interpretations of how to use musical instruments in an art project, so many different instruments. I really thought all of you came up with great ideas, thinking outside the box, and thank you again so much for playing along. Please do join in again this month. Like always, you will have the remainder of September to work on your project. And if you are new to the 4 core art challenges, please just follow the link below in my description box to the intro video, and there you will find all the information you need. So without further ado, let's just get started with the September 4 Core Art Challenge. Now, I always try to pick an interesting theme or an interesting substrate to work on, or even just a unique material that we all need to incorporate. But I always keep in mind that it is something that I think all of you have readily available, either in your craft room or somewhere in your household, or if not, that you could very cheaply and easily find it somewhere. So for this challenge, I opted to work with or on playing cards, ordinary playing cards. I have this very typical size here. I also have a bigger size, and I think you can even find bigger ones than this. You can of course also find smaller ones. I have some medium size cards and some really tiny ones here. Now the idea is to use these very prominently in a project. You could absolutely use these for a substrate, meaning you could turn the bigger ones into a postcard or a greeting card. You could make some ATCs out of these ones. You could turn these into tags by adding a hole or cutting the corners. Whatever you do, it's all good as long as you can still recognize that it is a playing card when you're all done. So you can add all kinds of mixed media things, you can collage on it, you can add whatever you want, but at the end, somewhere we should still be able to see either the number or some of the symbols or some of the pictures, so we know you worked with playing cards, because otherwise you could just be working on a piece of cardboard and nobody would know the difference. We will also all try to include at least 3 cards. So if you do an ATC, just decorate 3 different cards, or if you do something bigger, incorporate another card on top of it, or even 3, and you're there. So that is number 1. The main ingredient is playing cards in whatever size you have. And of course, many playing cards have also interesting backs. That design can also be incorporated in your project. So to part 2, we can work 2 or 3 dimensional. Meaning that you could do a painting, you could work in your art journal or on some art paper, you could work on a canvas board or a stretched canvas, you can work on wood panels, you can work on cardboard, and it could be a painting, as I said, it could be a collage where you incorporate the cards, but of course add other things, whatever you want to use to complete your project. But you can also go 3-dimensional. It's really fun to decorate things with playing cards. It could be boxes like I have here. It could be picture frames. I've seen people do really nice jewelry out of playing cards. You can absolutely make coasters out of playing cards. So many different things. And you can of course use them pretty much the way they are. But you can absolutely paint over them, collage over them, add texture over them, whatever you want to do, as long as you can still recognize at the end that you worked with playing cards. So that's part number 2. And then for part number 3, we will all add some fiber somewhere. Now, of course, I realize that if you do a collage or you do a painting, you may not want to add a lot of fiber, but it could be something very subtle, like a piece of cheesecloth in the background, like I have here, or a piece of lace somewhere at the edge. Well, if you go a little more three-dimensional, you can use all kinds of materials. I have one here that has a nice texture. This just very simple cotton materials here, more lace, and even this very coarse fabric here. Now, if you want to create, let's say, a journal out of these, you could absolutely sew them together using some fabric. You know, make a little spine. It could either just be one spine like this, or I've seen people do little booklets where it goes back and forth. There is a name for this, I forgot now. But you can give them a few spines, and it could fold open like this and close. You can decorate the pages. Whatever you like to do. It's really very open, but we will all include some fiber somewhere. And then for number 4, we will all try to include a pattern somewhere in our project. It could be in the background, it could be more prominent. If you do a painting, maybe you want to create some patterned wallpaper. Maybe you have a vase and it has some pattern on it, whatever it may be. If you have a box, maybe the sides should have a pattern on it. So stencils are easy for that. Just make sure it is actually a pattern and not just a design. You can also use stamps, of course, but you can also hand make your pattern. You can use handmade little stamps, maybe circles or swirls, as long as it's a repetitive design, of course. And how much and how little of this you include, it's up to you. So I think this is a challenge for this month. If you have any questions, please do let me know. But the main ingredient are playing cards in whichever size you have, at least 3. You can work 2 or 3 dimensional. Just make sure that when you're done decorating, we can still recognize the cards. So you can use these as a substrate, or you can use them as materials to decorate something else. You can do painting, you can do collage. Please do include some fiber in some shape or form. It could be just a little bit of lace or something to create a spine or whatever you like, and also include some pattern somewhere. That's it. That's the challenge for September. I really look forward to it. I think it will be a lot of fun because this material really gives us, again, lots of possibilities of where we can go with it. So I can't wait to see all of your ideas. I know you will have some really good ones. And like always, the list of the 4 core elements you will find one more time at the end of the video, as well as below in my description box. Thank you so very much for coming today. I see you soon again, latest by next Friday. Bye bye for now.